Hello, I'm really glad that you get a chance to work on your curriculum. I'm going to remind you of how we fill out this UOI template. Remember that we do elements 1 through 4 for curriculum. I've already made a copy of my template, and so now I've got that copy open and I'm going to rename it. Our naming scheme is that we name the unit, give it a unit and its number, and then we give it its name. So maybe this is Ecosystem Interactions. And I'm going to go ahead and put grade 6 in my initials so that we know in the name what we're talking about here. I want to make sure it's in the right spot. And it is. And then I'm going to fill out these top parts, which I think are self-explanatory. Element 1 is really important. It's your standards. And so most of us, we can put our priority standards in here, most of us have some electronic copy of standards where we can just copy and paste those right in there. And then just going to change this to black. And I want to now put in my objectives. And most of the time my objectives just matched my standards. So the student will, and then do those things that are part of that standard. Sometimes people like to split these out into two, but if it's too much to be in one objective. And then I'm just going to keep putting in my standards over here and my objectives over here. These are your power objectives and your priority standards down here. These are just supporting standards, things that you teach but not necessarily are going to assess. Also note that if you need more room here, you can right click on this last row and you can insert a row below, and you can put as many as you want in here. You can keep doing that. Right click, insert row below. The way you expand these boxes is just to carriage returns. Put carriage returns in there. So that's element 1. Elements 2 and 3 are together. They are your big ideas, essential questions, and guiding questions. And these are, element 1 makes you look at the specifics, start with the standards. It's really important. But then element 2 and 3 pull you back out into the big picture, the 35,000 mile view. And so big ideas, I've put a few over here so that I could just copy and paste. So big idea might be for this unit, changes in components of ecosystems can affect populations. Very broad statement, but it's also like if a kid says, why are we studying populations? Well, because changes in some of those things can really affect them, and we need to study those things. So an essential question then gets just slight more specific. So if we have changes, well, what are some of those changes that come about after we have competitive, predatory, and mutually beneficial relationships? What changes do those cause? What do they do to organisms? What do they do to populations? Guiding questions are more on a skill level. So DOK up here we intend to be 4. So these are very broad. They can even be more broad than these. DOK 4, because 4 means they're deep and it's going to take us some time to get there. Guiding questions are more on a skill level. So a guiding question might be, all right, so we've got all these components that are interacting. Um, what are some ways that we model these interactions? What kinds of diagrams do we use to model the interactions between components, or how do we look at populations with models? So that's more on a skill level of 2. So then that takes us to element 4. So element 4 is our one-stop shopping. It's kind of our table of contents where we could carry out the whole unit if we put it in chronological order. So maybe I do my ecosystem pretest first. So I give the name of the activity, which is ecosystem pretest. And now I am going to put a link to this because it is actually something that's in my Google Drive. So here's my pretest. So I can right click on this and get shareable link from it. And I'm going to Control C and get my shareable link, and then I'm going to hyperlink. So I highlight the text, hit hyperlink, and then I paste Control V that right in there. So now I've got this thing linked to a document in my Drive in Google Drive. And then I'm going to do a brief description. So the one thing that curriculum people like is for you to include, is this going to be, are the students going to work individually, in small groups, in large groups, or are they going to work in whole groups? So in this particular case, they're going to individually take the pretest. And on ecosystems. And then I might want to put the scoring guide here and link it because it has the key. And so for that first activity, which is the pretest, I've got everything that I need right here, and I can click and find it. So then maybe the next day I'm going to do a population activity, and maybe I go ahead and link here, and this time maybe they're working in small groups and they're going to sort vocab words into the right categories, and then explain their categories. So I would just write that. I would write the students in small groups will sort um, vocab words into categories and then explain their categories. And maybe my next thing is a game, and maybe it's online, and I would put a link. Or maybe it's a game that's on the third shelf in the back of my room, so I would explain that as well and put that in here, and I would just keep doing that until I get all of my activities. Also note that we're going to, each one of these things, we're going to put which objective that they pertain to. And remember, your objectives are up in element 1 right here. And basically, that's it. So thank you for listening.